Good morning. Welcome to Life Church. My name is Brianna Hill. This year, we are helping provide Christmas dinners and fun family baskets to families in need. A couple weeks ago, our Gems got together with their Gems grandmas and created these really fun holiday baskets to send off to the families with the meal. If you are able to help, we do have a giving tree in the lobby or online. If you could please donate through December 13th, that would be great. We are also helping our mission organization, Heart for the City, by providing gifts for boys and girls ages 11 to 13. We also have tags on our Christmas tree as a friendly reminder so that you can go home, go shopping, and bring back the gift by December 13th. Together as a staff, we have thought about the Christmas Eve services and what it means to come together social distancing so that everybody can feel comfortable. If you are most comfortable with an online option, we will have a 9 a.m. service on Christmas Eve morning. We also will have a 5, 7, and 11 at the church. For the 5 and 7 o'clock, we will have an outdoor porch experience with a big screen if you would like to come sit on a couch with some heaters and be able to be with your church family on Christmas Eve. We also will have indoor options for 5, 7, and 11. The 11 o'clock will only be a candlelight service inside the building. We really hope that you are able to choose one of these options to join us to celebrate the birth of Jesus. Now let's listen as Holly Martinez shares the second reading of Advent.
Peace. Advent is a time of anticipation. Just like God's people waited in anticipation for Jesus to be born into the world, we wait with anticipation for a day where Jesus will return and all things will be made right for eternity. We remember that as we wait, that we are the church and we have been called to bring peace to the world in the name of Jesus. We pray now, in a world of struggle and pain, where families go hungry and many have experienced loss because of disease and dissension, God, we call upon you to come. In a world where peace seems to be so far away, we call upon you, Prince of Peace, to bring peace. We pray for the peace that only you can bring. May we walk in the paths of your peace. Amen.
In the darkness we were waiting, without hope, without light, till from heaven you came running. There was mercy in your eyes, to fulfill the law and prophets. To a virgin came the word, from a throne of endless glory to a cradle in the dirt. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three and one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. To reveal the kingdom come and to reconcile the lost, to redeem the whole creation. You did not despise the cross, for even in your suffering you saw to the other side, knowing this was our salvation. Jesus for our sake you died. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three and one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. In the morning that you rose, all of heaven held its breath, till the stone was moved for good, for the Lamb had conquered death. And the dead rose from their tombs, and the angels stood in awe, for the souls of all who'd come to the Father are restored. And the church of Christ was born, then the Spirit lit the flame. Now this gospel truth of hope shall not yield, shall not fade. By His blood and in His name, in His freedom I am free. For the love of Jesus Christ, who has resurrected me. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. Praise forever to the King of Kings. We've waited for this day, we'll gather in your name, calling out to you. Your glory like a fire, awakening desire, will burn our hearts with truth. You're the reason we're here, you're the reason we're singing. Open up the heaven, we want to see. Open up the floodgates, a mighty river flowing from your heart, filling every part of our prayer. Your presence in this place, your glory on our face, we look into the sky. Descending like a cloud, you're standing with us now. Lord, unveil our eyes. You're the reason we're here, you're the reason we're singing. Open up the heaven, we want to see. Open up the floodgates, the mighty river flowing from your heart, filling every part of our praise. praise. A mighty river flowing from your heart, filling every part of our praise.
Show us your glory. Show us your power. Show us your glory, Lord. Show us your glory. Show us your power. Show us your glory, Lord.
Good morning, Life Church. It's great to see you all here this morning, regardless of where here is for you. This morning, we're in our 8th part of a 9-part sermon series on godly leadership from the book of Nehemiah. It's a principle-based series, and so we've created outlines to make it easier to follow along and to retain the messages. And so if you'd like to do that and you haven't printed one out yet, you may want to push the pause button right now and go and print it out and then come back. We've been studying Nehemiah from the standpoint of leadership. And today we're in Nehemiah chapter 6. Nehemiah chapter 6. And today we're looking at the secrets of super achievers. The secrets of super achievers. And so let's pray and we'll get right into it. God, we thank you for this time in your presence. Thank you, God, for bringing us into your presence through worship. Thank you, God, for bringing us into your presence through prayer. Thank you, God, for bringing us into your presence through your Spirit. And so, God, thank you in your presence that we have the opportunity now to sit at your feet and to hear your voice. Lord, we do want to hear your voice today. And so, Lord, we ask that you would give us ears to hear and minds to conceive and hearts to receive the specific message that you want to give each and every one of us. And we pray this in your great name. And all God's people said, amen. Now, I know this is going to show my age, but how many of us remember the Hall of Fame quarterback, Sonny Jurgensen? I at least do. Sonny was a great quarterback. He truly was. But one year, after loss after loss after loss, Sonny, as the quarterback, of course, the leader of the team, was taking a lot of pot shots from the press and fans. And one day, after yet another loss, Sonny was getting ready to take a shower and head for home when a sports writer kind of leaned over to him and said, "Hey, Sonny, be honest. Don't all these off-the-wall remarks we reporters write about and all the public flack disturb you? Doesn't it make you want to quit when people throw things at you from the stands and when you get those dirty letters? Don't you want to quit? Don't you want to give up?" And Sonny just kind of leaned back with his big toothless grin. And he said, "No, not really. I don't want to quit. I've been in this game way too long to do that. And besides, I know that every quarterback, every week of the season, spends his time either in the penthouse or the outhouse." And friends, Sonny's right, isn't he? He's absolutely right, but not just about quarterbacks. No, he's also right about leaders, about all leaders. Friends, as leaders, you and I, if we haven't experienced that yet, we will. As a leader, the truth is, we're going to be on the top or on the bottom, seldom in between. We're either going to be the hero or we're going to be the villain. We're going to be in the penthouse or we're going to be in the outhouse. That is just a reality of leadership, even spiritual leadership. Even spiritual leadership. Now, as we look at Nehemiah chapter 6 today, in spite of the fact that Nehemiah has been faithful, in spite of the fact that he's been stable, in spite of the fact that he has been a consistent, good leader, there are still people trying to put him in the outhouse. They're trying to make him give up what he's been called to do. But he won't. He won't give up. And because of that, Nehemiah becomes a tremendous example of a superachiever. A superachiever. Because in spite of all the odds, in spite of all the opposition, in spite of all the persecution, he actually achieves in 52 days what no other person could do in the 80 years before him. He rebuilt the wall in just 52 days. Do you realize that means we've actually been studying the building of Nehemiah's wall longer than it took him to do it? It's the truth. Nehemiah was a superachiever. And today we're going to look at 3 secrets of his success, 3 qualities of a superachiever. First, let's look at the 3 secrets. And as we do, let me kind of set the historical stage. The wall around Jerusalem is almost finished. In fact, in chapter 6, where we're at right now, there's only one thing left to do, and that's to hang the doors. To hang the doors. And so the wall's almost finished, but the opposition is not. They're not. I mean, at this point, they've tried almost everything. They've tried division, discouragement, derision, dread, everything they can think of to stop the project, but they still aren't done yet. Look at verse 1. When the word came from Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem, the Arabs, and the rest of our enemies that I had rebuilt the wall and not a gap was left in it, though at that time I had not set the doors and the gates, Sanballat and Geshem sent me this message. They said, "Come, let us meet together in one of the villages on the plain of Ono." But listen to what Nehemiah says. But they were scheming to harm me. And so I sent my messengers to them with this reply. I'm carrying out a great project and I cannot go. Why should the work stop here and while I go down to you? 4 times they sent me the same message. And he says, each time I gave them the same answer. Friends, in these 4 verses, we see the first secret of a superachiever. Number 1, keep working in spite of distractions. In spite of distractions. Notice that the first thing the opposition did was that they tried to sidetrack Nehemiah, right? They say, hey, Nehemiah, let's go up to Ono, which of course is just beautiful. It's a beautiful, fertile valley just about 20 miles north of Jerusalem. And so they say, let's go up to Ono and let's sit down like civilized adults and let's have a dialogue. Let's put our differences to the side and let's talk this thing through. But Nehemiah said, oh no, to Ono. Why? Well, number 1, the time for discussion was past. Friends, it was time to work. I mean, I don't know about you, but do you know people who like to talk more than they like to work? Do you know people who would like to talk to keep you from working? Well, that's exactly what's happening here. And more than that, at the end of verse 2, it says, they were scheming to harm me. Now, how did he know that? Friends, he had a God-given discernment. A discernment that enabled him to read between the lines. And so he knew this was a plot. He knew this was a ploy. He knew this was a con to try to hurt him. And so he said, there's no way I'm going to go. Friends, he saw through their intentions, and he saw them for what they were, a plot to harm him. But even more than that, Nehemiah says, why should I stop and go down to you when the work has not yet been finished? In other words, I know what you're trying to do. You're just trying to get me sidetracked so I can't finish the walls. But I'm not going to let that happen. And friends, here's the first leadership law. The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. The main thing is keep the main thing the main thing. That's exactly what Nehemiah does here. He keeps the main thing by keeping his eyes focused on his goal to get the wall done. And so number 1, keep working in spite of distractions. And number 2, keep working in spite of defamation. In spite of defamation. Look at verse 5. Then the 5th time, remember Sanballat has already sent him 4 messages. It says, then the 5th time, Sanballat sent his aide to me with the same message. And in his hand, this is new, in his hand was an unsealed letter. An unsealed letter. In other words, it's an open letter, kind of like a letter to the editor or a public post on Facebook, right? They want everybody to read it. And it says it's reported among the nations, and Geshem says it's true. And of course, if Geshem says it's true, it's got to be true, right? Geshem says it's true that you and the Jews are plotting to revolt. Therefore, you're building the wall. Moreover, according to these reports, you're about to become their king, and that you've even appointed prophets to make this proclamation among you in Jerusalem. And here's the proclamation that he's accusing him of making, which he never did, but here it is. There is a king in Judah. Then he writes, now this report will get back to the king of Persia a threat. So come, let us confer together. Friends, what are they doing here? They are trying to intimidate and slander Nehemiah, aren't they? They have sent an open, unsealed letter filled with all kinds of threats and all kinds of lies. And they say, look, we know what you're trying to do. You're trying to build your own little kingdom here, your own little empire. And with that, you're going to rebel against Artaxerxes, the king of Persia. And you're going to try to establish yourself as the king. Friends, hear this. Hear this. Anybody who sets big goals is going to be criticized and slandered by people who have no goals. Let me say that again. Anybody who sets big goals is going to be criticized and slandered by people who have no goals. Why? Because failure hates success. It's true, isn't it? Failure hates success. And so they try to sidetrack Nehemiah. And they also try to slander him. Do you know that the word Satan literally means slanderer? It means slanderer. And so hear this. When you and I slander somebody, you and I are actually doing the work of Satan, because that's what he does. He accuses and he slanders people. Now, notice Nehemiah's response here in verses 8 and 9. First, he openly denies their charges. He says, I sent him this reply. Nothing like what you say is happening. You're just making it up in your head. You're making it up. You're lying. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to defend myself. No, you're nothing but a bunch of bold-faced liars. And so first, he denies their charges. And second, he discerns their motives. Look at verse 9. It says, they were all trying to frighten us, thinking that our hands would get too weak for the work and it wouldn't be completed. Friends, Nehemiah understands their motives. He says, I know what you guys are doing. And so no matter what you say and no matter how many lies you spread, it's not going to work. I'm going to keep my focus on rebuilding the wall. Friends, Abraham Lincoln said the same kind of thing once. He said, if I were to try to read, much less answer all the attacks against me, this shop would close for business. I do my best, the very best I know how, the very best I can. And I mean to keep on doing it until the end. And if the end brings me out wrong, then 10 angels swearing I was right won't make a difference. Friends, I love that. By the way, General MacArthur and Winston Churchill both took the same approach. They said, we don't answer criticism, we don't respond to slander. We don't respond to accusation, because if we did, we spend all of our time just fighting those attacks. Friends, what do all those leaders have in common with Nehemiah? They all have the courage to stay focused on the greater task. Nehemiah then does a third thing. He denied their accusations, he discerned their motives, and third, he prayed. He prayed. He said, but I prayed, now Lord, strengthen my hands. Strengthen my... Now, why does he say, Lord, strengthen my hands? Because, friends, when you've been slandered, when you've been accused, you get emotionally drained, don't you? You get fatigued, you get worn down. And so Nehemiah goes to God in prayer, which is why Nehemiah was so hard for these guys to knock down. He was so hard for them to knock down. Why? Because, friends, it is hard to knock a man down when he's already on his knees. And that's where Nehemiah lived. He lived on his knees, on his knees. And so, friends, if you and I are going to be wise leaders, we need to realize that people are going to try to distract us. They're going to try to get us off course. They're going to try to defame us. They're going to say things about us. And we either have to spend our time fighting those criticisms, or we have to spend our time working on the project that God has given us. Nehemiah says, I'm going to work on the project God gave me. And I'm going to work on the wall. And he did. And in 52 days, that wall was built. Third, if you want to be a super achiever, keep working in spite of danger. Keep working in spite of danger. Look at verse 10. It says, one day I went to the house of Shemaiah, who was shut up in his home. He said, let us meet in the house of God inside the temple. Close the temple doors because men are coming to kill you. By night, they're coming to kill you. Now, what's he doing here? He's trying to scare Nehemiah, isn't he? Nehemiah, some night while you're sleeping and all alone, somebody's going to come into your house and they're going to kill you. And what's Nehemiah's response? Verse 11. I said, should a man like me run into the temple to save his life? I will not go. In other words, he says, I don't care what the danger is. I don't care who's coming to get me. I'm going to do what I need to do, and I am not going to hide. And I'm not going to hide for three reasons, he says. First, he says, should a man like me run away? In other words, I'm the leader of this group. If I run away, what's everybody else going to do? Besides, I'm not a coward. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to run away. Number two, look at verse 12. He said, I realized God had not sent him. This is very important. I realized God had not sent him. Friends, this guy Shemaiah said, Nehemiah, I have a word from God for you. I have a word from God. You need to run and hide into the temple. But Nehemiah said, I realized God had not sent him. Friends, have you ever met anybody who comes up to you and says, God told me to tell you, but he didn't? Or somebody who says, I know God's will for your life, or I know God's will for your ministry, or for whatever, but they don't. Friends, hear this. Just because somebody says, God told me so, or God told me to tell you, doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't. As a matter of fact, in Nehemiah's case, this guy was an out-and-out liar. Now, there are other people who might be as sincere as the day is long. That's the truth. They might be, but hear this. They also might be as wrong as the day is long. Let me give you 3 ways to help filter through these kind of comments. First, if somebody comes up to you and says, God told me to tell you, the first thing you need to ask yourself is this, is what that person's telling me, is it consistent with God's word? Is it utterly consistent with God's word, the Bible? Friends, hear this. God is not going to call somebody to tell you something he's already told you not to do in his word. He's not going to do that. So number 1, is what they're telling you consistent with God's word? Number 2, is what they're telling you consistent with the mind and the heart of Christ? Is it consistent with the mind and the heart of Christ? In other words, is it something that Jesus would do and say? If not, don't do it. Third, is it consistent with what other mature and wise people are telling me? Friends, Proverbs tells us to seek wise counsel, right? And so if somebody comes up to you and says, God told me to tell you, ask yourself, is it consistent with God's word? Is it consistent with the heart and the mind of Christ? Is it consistent with what other mature and wise people are telling me? Friends, if those 3 things don't line up, if they don't match, then remember this. Just because somebody says, God told me to tell you, doesn't mean it's true. Now, let's move to the real issue here. Verse 13. He writes, he had been hired to intimidate me so that I would commit a sin. Why? So then they could give me a bad name and discredit me. Friends, here's the real issue. They want to discredit Nehemiah. They want to ruin his reputation, and they want to destroy his leadership. How? By getting him to sin. By getting him to run and hide in the temple. You see, if anybody in that day went into the Holy of Holies except for the high priest, it was a sin worthy of death. Catch this. I really do believe that Nehemiah's enemies thought that if they could just convince Nehemiah that his life was at stake, and if they could get him to run into the safety of the Holy of Holies, where no other person would come in to try to get him, hear this. As the governor assigned by the Persian Empire, he had every right, legal right and power to do that. Even though the Jewish law said it was a sin worthy of death, as a representative of the Persian government that was ruling over Judah at that time, he had every legal right and power to enter into the Holy of Holies without fear of death from the people. And so his enemies figured, if they could just get him to go in, and then once he was in, he'd wait for the trouble to pass, And then by the time he came back out again, his name would be smeared and his integrity would be defiled. Friends, these are some really sharp guys. They really are. They know that if they can get Nehemiah to disregard God's authority, then his people will disregard his authority. Hear this. If the opposition can't get you to quit, they're going to try to get you to sin. If the opposition can't get you to quit, they're going to try to get you to sin. Why? To lose integrity and to make you ineffective. I mean, how many times have you and I seen leaders become ineffective because they have fallen into sin? Nehemiah said, I won't do it. I won't sin. Even with the possibility of my own death, I will not sin. And because of that, verse 15 says the wall was built in 52 days, which is absolutely an amazing feat. Friends, think about this for a moment. We are not talking about some little kiddie wall here. No, look at the pic on the screen right now. Look at the pic. We're talking about a wall that's more than 20 feet thick. That woman you see standing there on those rocks right now, she's actually standing on a part of Nehemiah's wall. And so if you ever get a chance to go to Jerusalem with me sometime, you're going to get a chance to see that because it's been unearthed. It's there. Now, there's a second pic. Check it out on the screen. That's an artist rendering of Nehemiah's wall. That's what it would have looked like in Nehemiah's day. Friends, it is a wall that went all the way around the city, making it an incredible feat in just building it back in 52 days. Now, notice what the result is in verse 16. When all of our enemies heard about this and all the surrounding nations, they were afraid and they lost their confidence. Why? Because they realized this work had been done with the help of our God. Now, what's going on here? The tables have turned, right? They've turned. I mean, for 6 chapters, we've seen the Jews get discouraged. We've seen them get depressed. We've seen them get afraid. But the moment the wall is built, the moment Jerusalem is fortified, who's afraid? Their enemies. Their enemies have lost their confidence. Why? Because they saw God's hand in it. They saw God's hand in it. Friends, what great thing are you a part of right now that the enemy see God's hand in? Now, let's apply this to our lives by looking at 3 characteristics of a superachiever. First, let me ask you, as we've been looking at these 3 points and we just came through this morning, did you notice anything that they have in common? Anything. Personal attacks, right? Personal attacks on the leader. Now, how many of you are football fans? If you're not, you ought to be. Nah, you don't have to be. But in football, one of the primary goals of the defense is to do what? It's to sack the quarterback. Sack the quarterback. Why? Because he's the leader of the offense. And friends, if you can sack him, if you can take him out of the game, either mentally or physically, chances are you're going to win that game. Why? Because everything rises and falls on leadership. No organization, no ministry, no team, no church, no family, no school, no business can go any farther than the leadership can take it. And so the quickest way for opposition to halt a project is to neutralize the leadership. Jesus actually puts it like this. He says, when the shepherd's removed, the flock scatters. The flock scatters. Which is why when Satan wants to cripple a church, he takes on the leadership. And not just pastors and the staff, but the lay leaders as well. And so as a leader, you and I need to realize that some people aren't going to like us. And that some people are going to attack us. Why? Because they want us to fail. They want us to fail. Friends, the truth is, how you and I handle those personal attacks will determine what kind of leader we're going to be. And so here's the question. What do you need as a leader to succeed in the face of defamation, distractions, and dangers? What do you need? Well, first, you and I need a compelling purpose. A compelling purpose. Friends, the very first element of leadership is a compelling purpose, a cause, a vision, a dream, an objective, a goal. I don't care what you call it. I really don't. But it's something that both pulls you in and that pushes you forward. It drives you on and it draws you to it. You have to have a compelling purpose. That's why back in verse 3, When Sanballat and those guys say, hey, Nehemiah, you deserve a break today. I mean, you've been working so hard on that wall, you really do deserve a break. And so why don't we just pull aside for a little bit, sit down, and have a little talk? But Nehemiah said, no way. Why? Because I am carrying on a great project. A great project. Circle that word, great. Friends, Nehemiah has a single-minded focus. Why? Because he is compelled by a great purpose, his God-given task to rebuild that wall. And that one great purpose is what drives him to accomplish the impossible in just 52 days. He said, no matter what, I'm going to keep the main thing, I'm going to complete this great project. Now, I'm going to stop right here and I want to ask you, is there any great project? Is there any compelling purpose in your life right now that motivates you to get out of bed in the morning? Is there? In other words, what are you exchanging your life for? What are you exchanging your life for? Is it money? A career? A new home? What are you exchanging your life for? Jesus actually put it like this. What are you giving in exchange for your soul? For your soul. Friends, do you realize that when you give your time to something, you're giving your life to something? Do you realize that? Why? Because, friends, that's what life is made of. It's made up of our time. Our time. You know, many people think that money is the most important thing that you can give another person, right? Many people think that. But it's not. It's not. No, money can be replaced. But when you give somebody your time, that's irreplaceable. You won't get it back, nor will they. And so let me ask you, where are you giving your time? Where are you giving your life? Do you have a compelling purpose? Do you have an overarching goal that motivates you and that keeps you going? The Apostle Paul said that Christ's love compels me to keep going. What compels you? What compels you? Here's the leadership law. Great lives are produced by a great commitment to a great cause. Great lives are produced by a great commitment to a great cause. In other words, most great people, please hear this, most great people are just ordinary people who have a great commitment to a great cause. Dwight L. Moody, the great evangelist of the 19th century, was a very ordinary man in a number of ways. He was a shoe salesman. He was poorly educated, and yet he had a great commitment to the great cause of Christ. As a matter of fact, his personal life motto was, the world has not yet seen what God can do through one man who's wholly devoted to him. And by God's grace and for his glory, I intend to be that man. And friends, because of his great commitment to that great cause, literally thousands and thousands of people came to Christ through his ministry. Jim Elliot and 4 of his friends back in the 1950s gave their lives to reach the Auca Indians, a notoriously dangerous tribe deep in the jungles of Ecuador. Why? Think about it. Why would they do that? Why would they go to the Auca Indians knowing that they might be killed? They did it because, in the words of Jim Elliot, he is no fool who gives up what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. In other words, he is no fool who gives up what he cannot keep, life in this world, to gain what he cannot lose, life with Christ for eternity. And so, friends, why wouldn't they go? Why wouldn't they go to fulfill the great commandment? Why wouldn't they go to fulfill the great commission that God has given us? Why wouldn't they go? And so they went. They went with a great commitment to a great cause, the cause of Christ, and they died. They died. They were killed by the Auca Indians. But hear this, because they went, Elizabeth went. And Elizabeth was Jim Elliot's wife. And after Jim Elliot and their 4 friends were killed, Elizabeth was compelled. She was compelled to go to the Auca Indians on her own. On her own. And when the Auca Indians saw and they heard the love and the grace and the forgiveness of God in and through Elizabeth Elliot, they wanted what she had. They wanted it, and by God's grace, they received it. Friends, because Jim and Elizabeth Elliot and their friends had a great commitment to a great cause, not only were the Aka Indians won to Christ, but thousands, literally thousands of missionaries have followed in their footsteps, and hundreds of thousands of people all over the world have been won to Christ because of it. One more. Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa was just a little ordinary Catholic nun. That's literally all she was, a little ordinary Catholic nun who believed to the core of her being that everyone deserves to die knowing the love of God. And so God took and used this little ordinary Catholic nun to do untold things because she had a great commitment to that great cause. Friends, hear this, a great cause draws us out. It draws us out. It helps us to become more than we could ever be on our own. And that's why you and I, we need one. We need one. And friends, there is no greater cause and there is no greater purpose for you and I to give our lives to than the cause of Jesus Christ. In a nutshell, the cause of Jesus Christ can be condensed down to this: the Great Commandment and the Great Commission. The Great Commandment and the Great Commission. In the Great Commandment, Christ calls us to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and our neighbor as ourselves. And in the Great Commission, Christ calls us to go into all the world and make disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and teaching them to do all that He's commanded us to do. Friends, if you want to leave a lasting mark in this world, you need a great cause. And there is no greater cause than the cause of Christ. Second, if you and I are going to be super achievers, we need to have a continual prayer life. A continual prayer life. Friends, as you and I have gone through this series, it's become abundantly clear that Nehemiah was a prayer addict, right? He was a prayer addict. And like every good addict, the more he gets, the more he wants, right? We see it chapter after chapter after chapter. His first response to everything is prayer. No matter what happens, he prays. Why? For 1, he found comfort and care in the arms of God. He found comfort and care in the arms of God. You see, the more he prayed, the more he poured out his heart to God, the more God poured his heart into him. And the more God poured his heart into him, the more intimate and real his relationship with God became. Nehemiah found comfort and care in the arms of God. Second, he lived a continual prayer life because he found wisdom and discernment in God's presence. He found wisdom and discernment in God's presence. James 1:5 says, if anyone lacks wisdom, ask God. Ask God. Friends, that verse in Nehemiah's day wasn't even written yet, at least not on paper. But it was certainly written in Nehemiah's heart, right? It was, because when he lacked wisdom, what did he do? He asked God, and God gave him the wisdom he needed. Friends, that's why you probably heard me say at some point or another that when you and I pray and we do what God tells us to do, it makes us out to be smarter than we are. It really does. Why? Because, friends, think about this. When you and I talk to God, when we actually speak to the living God of the universe, He knows everything, right? He knows everything. And so when He answers us, when He gives us a sense of what to do or an impression of what to say, when He answers us and we do it, it makes us out to be a whole lot smarter than we really are. Friends, if you and I want God's wisdom and discernment, we need to ask. We need to ask and keep on asking, keep on knocking until He gives it to us. And when He does, we need to do it. We need to do it. And when we do it, we'll look a whole lot smarter than we really are. And that's the truth. Number 3, Nehemiah had a continual prayer life because it gave him strength to keep on keeping on for God's glory. It gave him strength to keep on keeping on for God's glory. In Luke 18:1, Jesus told His disciples that they should always pray and not give up. Friends, circle those words, pray and not give up. Because in your life and mine, when the heat is on, and it's going to come, when the heat is on, And we're gonna do either one of those things. We're either gonna be praying or we're gonna give up. We're gonna pray or we're gonna give up. Friends, if you and I want to be super achievers for God, one, we need to have a continual prayer life that will fill us with God's comfort and care. Two, He will give us wisdom and discernment in that prayer life. And three, He's going to give us the strength to keep on keeping on. And then finally, number three, the third characteristic of a super achiever is a courageous persistence. A courageous persistence. Friends, one of the great keys to success is the ability to hang in there and not give up. To keep on keeping on, to keep doing what God has called us to do in spite of what comes our way. Friends, if you and I are going to be super achievers, we need to have courageous persistence. Now, Nehemiah had a lot of things to be fearful of, right? And at times, I truly do believe he was fearful. But he was also courageous. You say, wait a minute, Derek, wait a minute. How can somebody be fearful and courageous at the same time? Simple. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's not the absence of fear. Courage is moving ahead in spite of your fear. It's moving ahead in spite of your fear. Friends, that's what makes a courageous person. They move ahead in spite of their fears. Look at verse 11. Nehemiah said, should a man like me run away? No, he says, I'm not going to run away. Yeah, I might be a little scared here right now because you guys are trying to kill me, but I'm not going to run away. No, I'm going to stay right here and I'm going to finish this project. Galatians 6:9 says, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Friends, when things get tough and you're getting weary, don't give up, because the harvest is coming. It's coming. Now, let me give you a little quiz about these three things. First, friends, you and I need a purpose. We need a purpose that's so powerful and so compelling that it keeps us from being distracted by the trivial. How many here have ever played the game Trivial Pursuit? That game wonderfully describes a lot of people's lives in our world today, doesn't it? Trivial Pursuit. And so if that's where you're at today, hear this. The trivial things of life, even the good things of life, are often the enemy of the best things in life. I'm going to say that again. The trivial things of life, even the good things of life, are often the enemy of the best things in life. Why? Because, friends, when you and I settle for the trivial, when we settle for the good, we fail to grasp a hold of God's best for us. God's best. And what is God's best? It is the cause of Christ. It's to love Him and to be loved by Him. It's to love others, and it's to make disciples. You say, well, Derek, I'm just too busy for worship, or I'm too busy for quiet times with God, or I'm so too busy to focus on my faith right now. Friends, if that's true, you're just too busy. You are too busy. You say, well, Derek, I'm too busy to get involved in ministry. I'm too busy to give up my time and my talents. I'm just too busy to go out and bless other people, as you talk about. I'm just too busy. Friends, if that's true, you're too busy. You and I only have a limited amount of time in this world, a limited amount of time. And so I want to challenge you right now. I want to challenge you to say, God, where is the good being the enemy of the best in my life? Where is the good being the enemy of the best in my life? And what do I need to change to do what you want me to do? Second, how's your prayer life right now? How's your prayer life? Is it continual? Is it? Are you pouring out your heart to God so that God can pour His heart into you? Are you doing that? Or are you giving up? How's your prayer life? Number 3, do you do God's will with courageous persistence? Courageous persistence. Have you ever actually stepped into God's presence and said, God, I don't care what it costs. I don't care what it takes. I don't care what people say about me. I don't care what the dangers are. Right now, in your presence, I'm going to make a great commitment to your great cause. Have you ever done that? Friends, those are the characteristics of superachievers. And that's why Nehemiah was able to do in 52 days what other people couldn't do in 80 years. Let me close with this. One of the great lessons of this entire book is that everything rises and falls on leadership. Friends, our world, our nation, our cities, our businesses, our schools, our organizations, our churches, our families, they all desperately need leaders who have made a great commitment to the great cause of Christ. So I want to challenge you to be one of those leaders. I want to challenge you to say, Lord, I'm done sitting on the sidelines. I want you to put me in the game. I want you to use me. Yeah, I may only have one talent, but God, I want to take that one talent and I want to use it for you, and I want to use it to build your kingdom and not mine. Friends, there is no greater cause and there is no greater purpose in life than the cause of Christ. And so I want to challenge you to say, God, whether I have a day left, a week left, a year left, or no matter what amount of time you've given me, I want to take it and I want to make a great commitment to the great cause of Christ. Friends, please hear this. Great people are just ordinary people who make a great commitment to a great cause. Do you want to be one of them? That's what it boils down to. Great people are just ordinary people who make a great commitment to a great cause. Do you want to be one of them? Let's pray. Lord, right now I pray that you would raise up a generation, a Nehemiahs right here at Life Church, and Lord, throughout your church, throughout the world, that you would raise up a generation of Nehemiahs. And I pray that you would raise up a generation of godly leaders, men and women who have a compelling purpose, the cause of Christ, and who have a continual prayer life with you, and who have a courageous persistence to keep on keeping on for you and for your cause. And Lord, we pray all this in your great and mighty name. And all God's people said, amen. Today I want to give us 4 different ways to respond. First, if you're ready to step out in faith and actually give your life to Jesus Christ and receive him as your Savior and follow him as your Lord to become a part of that great cause of Christ, then I want to invite you to go to our website and to share that with our prayer team. That's the way we're joining you in prayer right now, is to go to the website, you put it there, and then we, as a part of the prayer team, we're praying for those every single day. Every single day. Which leads us to the second way for us to respond, and that's if you want to receive prayer for yourself or for others. It doesn't have to be for what we just talked about, but for any reason. There is that prayer wall on the website. Once again, the prayer team monitors it daily, and they send it out so that I and others on that team can be praying for you for whatever reason you put there. Third, another way that you and I can respond to this God who loves us and cares for us is to give back to him with our time and our talents and our treasures that he's given us. And you can do that in 2 ways. If you're ready to give your treasures today, you can do that in 2 ways. One is to go onto the website and give there. The other is to give by check and to send it into the Life Church of the Northwest Valley, and the address is right there below me, 8765 West Kelton Lane, Building B3, Suite 140, Peoria, Arizona, 85382. And then the fourth way for you and I to respond is to go. It's to go and to look for ways to bless other people. And when we talk about bless, we're talking about beginning with prayer for the people and the places where we live, work, study, and play. In other words, for the places that God puts us. Begin to pray for those people and places. And then as we're in those places, we listen to those people. Listen to those people. Get to know their story. Get to know who they are. And as you do that, eat with them. Or in this season, maybe encourage them. Encourage them. And as you encourage them, you're going to have an opportunity to serve them. As you pray for them, as you listen to them, as you encourage them, you're going to find out some of their needs, and you're going to have the opportunity to serve them. And as you serve them, God's going to open a door for you to be able to share with them, to share your story and Christ's story. And so now as you and I go, the calling that God has placed on our lives is to live like Jesus and to love like Jesus and to share his message everywhere we go. Because when we do that, it brings life. It brings life to our family, to our friends, to our neighbors, and to our world. And so go. And as God blesses you, bless others.